What caused a Miami condo building to collapse in on itself? The latest in the search for survivors in South Florida. Plus, we have a deal. Biden gets the infrastructure agreement he's wanted. And Love, Hate, 8 Pride Edition. Friday Need to Know. Let's go. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need to Know podcast for June 25th. I am Carlo Versano. Once again, we're here with Baker Machado filling in for Jill. Baker, good to see you. Thanks for filling in this week.
Absolutely, Carlo. Happy Friday to you. Great news. We get to sleep in tomorrow, except for you, of course, because you won't be able to sleep in for another 18 years or so. But the other thing that's great, Carlo, it is a lot of people doing Summer Fridays right now, except you can't really have that in the news industry. So I'm always a little jealous of people that have all these random days off in the summer.
It's so true. I've got friends who get out early on Fridays or just are off on Fridays. Really, I mean, this is the first real summer Friday of the year. Is anybody actually working this summer? Is anybody?
No.
Nobody really seems to be working very hard. I think that we should really. I think there should be a national policy where we should all have Fridays off through Labor Day. Right? Let's
agree,
enjoy
Carlo.
the summer.
I feel like you're either working incredibly hard right now or you're not working at all. And I feel like most people are probably not getting back to a normal life until September. So everybody kind of has the summer off except for us.
I think that bosses out there should really just, try and give people a break this summer. Everybody needs to get out there, enjoy life a little bit. Just give people some grace.
Look, Bumble gave their employees an entire week off, Carlo. I feel like they're onto something. They should have done the entire month of July, and I'll take that as well. Carlo, we got a lot, obviously, to dive into today when it comes to the news. So let's start with that horrible tragedy that continues to unfold by the hour in South Florida. A massive search and rescue operation continuing in Surfside. That's just north of Miami Beach, where a 12-story condo building partially collapsed into a mountain of debris early Thursday morning. Now, at least one person so far is confirmed dead. 99 more, though, are still unaccounted for. The cause of the collapse still unknown at this hour. Surveillance video, incredible video, shows the building's lower floors buckling before the structure pancaked in on itself, suggesting a potential possible failure within the concrete columns. That's all according to engineers. Carlo, the video of so many different angles that people took is just harrowing to watch.
I hope that this is just, not that it makes it any much of a difference for the victims, but this is just a structural engineering failure and nothing else. It seems like that's what's going to be the case here. Now, I am holding out hope that this isn't the catastrophe that it could be, just because this is important. They're describing these people not as missing, but as unaccounted for, which means that they don't know if these people were actually in their units or if those units were perhaps empty or had tenants that have been accounted for. Now, a lot of these Miami Beach condos, especially along the beach and in Surfside and in Brickell in the city, they're popular with wealthy South Americans. A lot of Venezuelans, a lot of Brazilians buy these condos sort of as a place to park their money, and they either rent them out or just sort of keep them as like vacation homes. Right. So it's possible that some of these units were vacant at the time, which we can only hope. But it just to that point, among those unaccounted for is the family of Paraguay's first lady.
Yeah, just awful news. And of course, we'll continue to watch all the stuff that's happening down there. I do want to move now to Washington, Carlo. President Biden struck a big bipartisan deal, the one he's been looking for quite some time, his big white bipartisan whale. He did this with a group of Democratic and Republican senators on a $579 billion infrastructure package. Now, it's a huge breakthrough for the White House's economic agenda, though the compromise will still need to pass both chambers of Congress, which is obviously far from a sure bet here. Now, President Biden announcing the breakthrough alongside moderate senators that made it all happen, saying the agreement, quote, reminds me of the days when we used to get an awful lot done up in the U.S. Congress. He even went as so far as to say, Carlo, to reporters yesterday, I feel like I know more about the Senate and the U.S. House better than you guys do.
It's probably true. I mean, he's been around long enough, right?
True.
Certainly true with the Senate. Now, the White House wants to push this bipartisan infrastructure framework while also pushing for a second spending bill that Democrats could pass through the budget reconciliation process. They could do that without Republican support. That bill would include some of these so-called human infrastructure proposals that Biden has been pushing for: more money for childcare, for climate change, other benefits to the social safety net. He says he wants to do these in tandem. Not that he wants to do them in tandem. He will only sign this if the other bill comes to him at the same time. Now, the left is pissed off, saying that this isn't nearly big enough for an infrastructure bill. I saw that AOC immediately tweeted as much, and I got a little annoyed, I got to say. I would have responded to her if I were one of those people who responds to Congress people's tweets, which I am not. I would have said, where's your deal, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez? I mean, politics, Baker, is a game of incrementalism, especially when your party is barely hanging on to its majority by its fingernails, right? You don't always get everything you want when you want it. I would have thought that elected officials would know this, but frankly, I got to say, I almost got chills watching this sort of impromptu press conference yesterday. When was the last time that you saw a group of Democratic and Republican senators laughing and joking and smiling alongside the president? We haven't seen that during the Trump years. We didn't even see that during the Obama years.
Nope. No, it's such a good point, Carlo. I mean, you're right. It almost like harkens back to when Joe Biden was in the Senate, and you used to see these bipartisan deals getting done with, John McCain and Susan Collins and all these other people back in the day. The interesting part, you mentioned AOC, the interesting part here for progressives is how much they basically how much they capitulated to get this deal done. How much are they going to put pressure now on Joe Manchin now to basically, you mentioned the reconciliation bill, go with what they want to do on that reconciliation bill? Because there is every indication right now that Joe Manchin is not even that happy with most of the human infrastructure bill right now. So clearly you have to make it, water it down at least enough that he's going to be satisfied with that. But at the same time, Bernie Sanders, who is furious about talking about Joe Manchin all the time, doesn't look like he likes this bipartisan infrastructure deal. So there's basically going to have to be this give and take between Democrats and this bipartisan bill. And we should note the House, Nancy Pelosi has a 4-seat majority right now in the House right now. Who knows if even Democratic senator or Democratic House members who are on the left and even your more hardline conservative Republicans that are even going to support this deal. But either way, it's still incredible to see finally something getting done in Washington.
I think Pelosi will be able to whip her votes. Now, I think the bigger question is in the Senate if McConnell will tell people to vote for this. Can they?
Right. He hasn't said that yet.
Will 60 Republicans vote for this bill? Just because they, 5 of these moderate Republicans came together doesn't really mean squat when it comes down to it. We've seen these things. We saw this happen with Obamacare in 2009. They said that they had a deal and it fell apart. So we'll have to see. But I think that there's a good chance. I think that Biden, say what you will about him, but he is able to do things that a lot of other recent presidents have just not been able to do based on his experience and the fact that he's not this really divisive figure.
Well, on top of that, Carlo, and we'll move on after this, we traditionally, when we elect our presidents, we usually like outsiders. Look at every single last president we've had, from Trump to Obama to George Bush to even Bill Clinton. All were either former governors or didn't have, or in Barack Obama's case, he wasn't in the Senate for very long. We traditionally don't like people who are incredibly experienced politicians. You usually run against the experienced politicians. So this is the one time this actually proves to be beneficial in Joe Biden's camp right here. Speaking of politics, Carlo, Rudy Giuliani is banned for practicing law in the state of New York. This first step in possible disbarment of the former federal prosecutor and former mayor of New York City. New York's appellate court ruled that Giuliani made demonstrably false and misleading statements as he fought the results of the 2020 election on behalf of his then former client, former President Trump, now temporarily suspending his law license pending disciplinary proceedings here. So essentially, Rudy Giuliani no longer can practice law whatsoever here in the state of New York. But hey, I'm sure there are some jobs available and open at the Four Seasons Total Landscaping if you want it.
Remember that? Man, last year was nuts.
Nuts.
That election was wow. Sometimes I was just reading the story in the Post yesterday about the sort of TikTok behind the scenes about when Trump got COVID in October. Man, that was wild stuff.
The stories even back then. We're talking about a bipartisan deal in Washington. The Trump years were the most bananas of all of them. You got the craziest headlines back then.
I mean, a month before the election, the president was close to dying from the disease that was ravaging. It's incredible. Anyway, just talking about Giuliani, a pathetic and predictable beginning of the end of the career of America's mayor, or someone who was once called America's mayor, once on the cover of on the Time Person of the Year cover under that headline. Rudy, a fascinating, tragic character in American politics. The guy was a national hero after 9/11. Now, real New Yorkers knew that he was a fraud even back then, but he was able to build this sort of like folk hero-dom in other parts of the country, which actually led him to a failed presidential run. I will always remember my college girlfriend's dad, when I met him, is telling me that he was super jazzed about Rudy running for president in 2008, which obviously did not last long.
No, it didn't.
But I mean, regardless of what you think about him, imagine if he didn't lose his marbles and he just sort of retired, right? Or just sort of became a consultant or a speaker or even a professor, what people do when they retire. The first line in his obituary would be about how he performed so admirably in the aftermath of 9/11, which he did. Now it's going to be about how he tried to overturn the results of an election in like the most flailing and ridiculous way imaginable. I mean, he's a joke, and it's sad.
Look, I mean, who knows? Maybe one of the top lines in the obituary also will be about his hair dye that was running down the side of his face as well. By the way, his son, Andrew Giuliani, who is running for the Republican nomination for governor in 2022, he released a video which went viral yesterday. I don't know if you saw this. It was so crazy. Where he basically, the framing of his video had so much headroom. Basically, his head and his body was in the very bottom third of the frame, and he had like so much headroom that it spawned all these people essentially making fun of him as a result of that. But even Donald Trump came out yesterday basically saying that the state of New York crooked for basically dumping Rudy Giuliani and everything else here,
hey,
Carlo.
Words have consequences. You love to see it.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, let's switch gears and talk about the Pacific Northwest, Carlo. It is the latest region to get slammed with a historic early summer heat wave. Triple-digit temperatures are descending on Washington and Oregon this weekend, where records are expected to fall or be matched from Portland to Seattle, all the way up to British Columbia. Meteorologists are also warning that the heat is especially dangerous because so many residents don't have air conditioning. Carlo, some of my friends in Palm Springs, California, last week it was like 115, 116 degrees where they were at. And they're like, oh yeah, this is just like a normal Tuesday for us. But you're seeing those temperatures all across the western side of the United States right now, which is really, really scary.
115 in Palm Springs is one thing. 115 in Portland is a whole nother thing because of exactly what you said. Most people don't have AC. So people are going to die this weekend because of this heat. So if you're out there, please be careful. Check on your neighbors and your family members. This is no joke. It's also this record-breaking heat. It's also being felt across Eastern Europe and Russia. Moscow and St. Petersburg breaking June temperature records this week, as did the entire countries of Estonia, Hungary, and Belarus. Satellite imagery taken by European weather satellites this week recording a ground temperature of 118 Fahrenheit in Siberia in the Arctic Circle. Now that's surface temperature, not air temperature, which was slightly lower, but still, to quote my favorite Mad Men meme, not great, Bob.
Yeah, oh God, I miss that show so much. Carlo, by the way, if we're getting temperatures, June the 25th that are like this right now, and June is typically not even the hottest month that we have in the entire year. Imagine how things are going to be in July and August this year. August in particular. August is when we usually get the hottest here in New York City. So I'm pretty concerned for what it's going to look like in August.
Hot Earth summer. This is just how it is now.
Yeah, all right. Meanwhile, Microsoft, big announcement yesterday, Carlo, the first major update to Windows since 2015. They're calling this Windows 11. The spruced up desktop operating system looks a little bit different from Windows of the past. It has a simplified design and an interface more closely resembling what you see on a Mac. Now, Windows 11 also runs Android apps. It integrates with Xbox and Teams, and it also features performance boosts. The software is expected to launch later this year year. On the teams angle here, as we've now kind of moved into a post-pandemic world and what life will be like, learning from what we learned during the pandemic with Zoom and all these other platforms, Teams has become a huge platform for almost every company in corporate America right now. So you almost have to update essentially your software system to make it more Teams compatible, given the fact that that's basically the software so many people in corporate America use right now.
You know what's so funny about that is that, I mean, right now we're broadcasting this over Skype, which is also owned by Microsoft.
Yes.
Is there a bigger failure in like modern technology than Skype losing to not just Teams, but Zoom and even Google? I mean, they were ahead of the game
beyond.
when they came out years ago, and now I think we're probably the only people that still use it.
That's actually not a bad thing. That's not a bad observation there. But it's interesting. I would say, usually the people that make the stuff at the beginning tend to not be the ones that keep it going for the rest of the time. They always basically, somebody makes it and tweaks it and makes it a little bit better afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, Skype, by the way, is not a particularly good piece of software, so you can see what happened there. But also, Baker, that was not the big news in the world of desktop computing yesterday. Instagram testing the ability for users to post directly from their desktop browsers. This is a big deal. It's the first time Instagram has ever allowed posting from outside the app, and it's a sign they're trying to get drive traffic to their website, which is famously non-functional. If you've ever tried to log on to Instagram on your computer, it basically doesn't work. This pilot comes after the Facebook-owned service confirming that it's also tinkering with the algorithm by starting to place suggested posts interspersed throughout the main feed for the first time. Usually it's the feed just shows you who you follow, and then at the end they show you some suggested posts. Now they're going to be interspersed throughout the whole thing, sort of like it is on Facebook. At which that's the story here. Instagram is basically becoming Facebook, which again, that was going to happen. The founders left. Zuckerberg owns the whole thing. This is the evolution of it. The kids have noticed, from what I've heard, by the way. If you ask a teenager in your life, they're almost certainly going to tell you Instagram is old news. It's boring now.
Oh, yeah.
It's all influencers. Nothing is real. The millennials that drove its growth, we're all too old and too lame to be posting all the time. So there's not a lot of organic content. So it just shows you something that's hot today, yesterday's news tomorrow.
Oh, absolutely, Carlo, because that's how I feel when I look at my parents who love Facebook. I look at our generation, we're probably the Instagram generation. And then you're right, every generation below us is either Snapchat or TikTok. I feel like less and less of the younger generation thinks Instagram is as cool or as interesting as we do. So you're right. It's a perfect reminder how old we're getting throughout all these social platforms. I almost like harken back to almost we're the MySpace generation, almost in a sense.
I remember Friendster.
Oh, God, Friendster was great, too. Oh, man. Okay. Meanwhile, huge news in the fashion world, Carlo. Canada Goose. They say they're going to stop using fur in their jackets by the end of next year. The maker of those high-end parkas will stop buying the coyote fur that they use to insulate the hoods of their pricey down-stuffed coats, becoming the latest luxury brand to drop fur or exotic animal skins. Carlo, if you walk sometimes through Manhattan, especially in the wintertime, you'll see signs posted throughout Manhattan of basically people saying, don't buy Canada Goose jackets because what they do to animals, especially coyotes. I have a Canada Goose jacket. I actually removed the hood of mine because I felt uncomfortable having people know that I had the hood of that jacket. But having said that, it is the warmest, greatest coat ever.
Well, that did a lot of good to the for the coyote that was.
I know. Yes. It's this coyote skin is now in the closet, so that way nobody knows it exists.
Yeah, well, if you've ever seen the videos of how they trap these poor coyotes to get the fur for these jackets, it will make you never want to buy one.
Right.
But yes, big news. Burberry, Prada, Nordstrom also have recently committed to going fur-free in recent years. No question that fur as a luxury good is on its way out. And, great news. The sooner the better, because that's one of those things I think that we're going to look back on and just be like, I can't believe that we did that. Like, it's just so sort of gross.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, you know what, Baker? We're going to do a little Love Hate 8 Pride Weekend edition.
Yes.
Before we start, a quick happy 40th birthday to Jessica Dominguez, one of our great listeners who is a Need2Know fan from the beginning, and shout out to her husband Alex as well. Okay, let's do it. Love Hate 8.
Okay, so here's the thing, Carlo. New York City Pride this weekend. It's great because also we're celebrating the 10-year anniversary of marriage equality becoming law of the land here in New York City. The first time I ever came to New York was actually 10 years ago. I was actually still weirdly in the closet when this happened, and I came to the New York City Pride Parade. So I've always sort of had this amazing connection to Pride here in New York City, and it is the best city to really celebrate Pride. So the love. Pride weekend in New York City. It's amazing. Every bar, every place is packed to the gills. The nightclubs, the discotheques, people are in tank tops. Some people are wearing nothing. It is literally one of my favorite experiences ever. Now, one thing I hate, Carlo, more than anything, everything now is like ticketed affair. It is super expensive. Now it's actually hard sometimes to actually get to some of these big parties. I was messaging on Instagram, because I'm an old person, with a friend of mine about what to do this weekend. And they're like, oh yeah, here's a list of all the events that all of us are going to. Oh, by the way, they're all sold out. You can't go in anyway. So I hate now that basically my options are very limited in what I can do. So you have to basically plan Pride a year in advance. So
you got to go to the dive bars. You got to go to the divey ones, right?
Exactly. So me and all the other old ancient millennials out there, we are going to be at the divey gay bars this weekend. I'm sure there's going to be some drag shows in there, but either way, still going to be good.
God, Baker. Well, first of all, I'm jealous just because I can't remember the last time I partied in New York City, and I miss it because it's so fun. I have to say though, I mean, I used to live right off 6th Avenue in the West Village, and this was the weekend that I would avoid at all costs, not for any ideological reasons,
but it's a mess.
It was just. It's a mess. It is an absolute mess. It is so loud. I used to go up, pack up my stuff, go to my parents' house for the weekend. But honestly, this year, I would love to be back in that apartment, just watching everybody celebrate.
That would have been a good place to. That would have been a good place to people watch, Carlo. Just in terms of the outfits, the different groups of people that you'd be seeing, the drunk people that are just like passed out on the road somewhere, all of that. All right, the big thing we ate this weekend, and I hate to basically sound stereotypical, but it's got to be the sprinkles this weekend. The thing is like it's going to be in everything. It's going to be in your baked goods. It's going to be in your ice cream. By the way, if you've ever had the Milk Bar birthday quake, it is the greatest thing ever because it's basically ice cream, sprinkled truffles, and then more sprinkles on top of that. It is one of the greatest.
Where do you get that?
At Milk Bar. Go to Milk Bar, and it's so good.
Oh, yeah.
And if you have a Milk Bar nearby, you got to get that. But I've realized, Carlo, as I've gotten older, I enjoy sprinkles more as I get older, more so than I did when I was a kid.
Rainbow sprinkles. I've always been a rainbow sprinkles guy.
So good.
The vanilla. You know what I usually get at the ice cream place. By the way, big gay ice cream in the West Village.
Oh,
if you're
so
in New York
good
City.
too. Yes, that's going to be happening this weekend.
Great ice cream place. The vanilla chocolate soft serve twist with the rainbow sprinkles.
Oh yes.
In the sugar cone. That to me is summer in New York.
I feel like sprinkles, what makes them so good is it's a texture thing because you're getting the sweetness, but you're also getting the crunch, which is obviously the best part in all of that.
The crunch is key. Okay, well, on that lovely note, Baker, thank you so much for filling in this week. You did a great job. We always love having you. Have a fantastic weekend.
Hope I make it back out alive.
Yes, keep us posted. Jill's back on Monday, guys. Have a great weekend. That's what you need to know for Friday, June 25.